Hey, Reliability Gang, I'm Jonathan Guining.
And I'm Brendan Russ, and welcome to Reliability Radio, a JLL production and ReliabilityWeb.com media brand.
IMC25, I'm getting real excited about heading down to the expo after this, Brendan.
Oh, yes. Now that expo is open, I'm itching to see what's down there.
You know, a lot of great mobility solutions. We got a lot of organizations out there that are trying to make technology useful for the hands of the technician, specifically in the reliability realm.
Right, because now we have all the capabilities, and with mobile, trying to bring that all together so you can get an unbelievable amount of information or capabilities into the fingertips of your technicians when they're out in the middle of nowhere or out in the truck visiting different sites, making it so that they have something right at the ready. But
the challenge,
got to get them to actually do it.
Yeah,
right.
It's one of those tough things that we continue to talk about, change management and the adoption rates and getting that data back the way that we need it.
And there was an example actually in this morning's Wrap Talks about a technician that had a tablet that was kind of centered on top of an asset, trying to facilitate it, needed both hands, puts all the stuff down, completely ignored the device.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough place to be, but thankfully, we have our next guest, Aaron Hermes from Interloc. Aaron, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Aaron, and what you do at Interloc.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Vice President of Product Development at Interloc. Been there about 9 years now. And in that role, I actually oversee development and support of our mobility product, Mobile Informer. And it's focused on Maximo, of course, but I think a lot of the lessons that we've learned there apply more broadly than that.
Universal problem when you're trying to get technicians to use devices and other mobile products. So this is something that I'm pretty sure is near and dear to your heart, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's my daily concern, my bread and butter, my end all be all. It's all I think about all the time.
So what do you see when you see this kind of issue prop up for technicians? I mean, tell us what you see.
Well, I think you hit a couple of the key things already. One of the biggest that I like to emphasize is the importance of choosing something that's usable where you need to use it, and the ability to capture data where you are, where you're working. And if you need both hands to work on the thing you're doing, then you can't use any of your hands for entering data. So you have to figure out how to do that, either a different way of working, which is less likely, or a better way of input, which is far more likely. So using the technology to simplify what you're doing in a way that's helpful and not just a way that's driven by, compliance needs or management dictum or something like that is really important to getting users to actually embrace the solution and use it. And it's a really multifactored sort of thing. It's not just how do I use this? Is what do I need to do? What kind of role am I in? Where am I working more broadly? Am I out in the sun? Am I out in the snow? Am I up on a pole? Am I down in a hole? Those types of things all shape what makes for a good solution.
You just mentioned a couple of excuses. What's the craziest excuse you've ever heard from a technician to not use your mobility platform?
Well, there's crazy, and then there's things they should have thought
Obscene?
about in advance.
Both. We want to hear it.
This isn't a mobility after dark. That's a whole different thing. We had a customer once who had tried a mobile solution for Maximo that they're based in the desert, out in the sun, and the tablets that they'd chosen, for whatever reason, couldn't be seen in the sunlight outside. So it became completely unusable. The people would carry the tablet out to where they're working on the machinery, couldn't see the tablet. So they had to set it down, take it back, and then do everything after the fact. It completely defeated the purpose of the whole thing. So that sort of thing, I mean, ridiculous. We've seen a big shift in the time that I've been doing this as more digital natives have entered the workforce. So there's a lot of resistance from people who have been in these positions for 20, 30, 40 years. But
they can all order a pizza off their cell phone.
Well, yeah, but even then, not so much some of the more seasoned veterans 10 years ago. But now, yeah, it's become ubiquitous. People interact with mobile devices all the time. Pizza deliveries, movies, games, whatever. That wasn't the case in 2010. We forget the iPhone's only been around since 2007. So all of that smartphone sort of automatic knowledge stuff is really relatively new. And we're seeing the impact of that as people are more willing to take these things on in the workforce and work with them directly.
I mean, we're about to hit 2026. This is 20 years, though.
Yeah, well, exactly. But 20 years ago, the people that we're trying to convince had been in the job for 20 years and they didn't want to learn a new thing. So now the people, basically iPhone's getting ready to graduate from high school. And, it's a new day where people are just used to that. So it's made it a lot easier to make the case for mobility, but that doesn't mean that it's automatic. It's still got to be good. It's still got to be helpful. It's still got to be usable. And a lot of that comes down to how you implement it and who your implementer is. Do they understand what work you're trying to do? Do they understand what it is that's important to what you're trying to do and choose that? There's a lot of products out there. Some of them are better than others. Very few of them are very, very bad. But the difference between getting it right and getting it wrong more often than not just comes down to understanding your requirements more than the actual choice of technology.
So how do you start that conversation, right? Because I mean, it's, if you're going to interact with this mobile technology, it's got to be fit for purpose. It's got to give you the data that you need. How do you start those conversations? Somebody calls you up and says, "Hey, Aaron, I want to use Mobile Informer." How do you guide them through that conversation?
Yeah, generally we start with, what are you trying to do? Are we looking to do work execution? You want to update work orders, you want to run inspections on things, or are you trying to manage your storeroom and issue and return materials, transfer stuff between, those types of things? Those differences between what they need can help us streamline the solution to be more tailored to that user and take away the things that don't matter. We talk a lot internally at Interloc about the idea of mobile relevance, and there's a lot of stuff in any of these EAM systems, CMMS systems, that are really important to somebody somewhere, but a lot of them are not necessarily important to the user in the field.
Explain mobile relevance.
Yeah, so mobile relevance means does the person in the field, the mobile user, do they need to concern themselves with this? And like I said, a lot of the stuff that's in these systems, these really big, configurable, extendable, customizable systems, don't matter to the person in the field that's trying to turn a wrench and get through their day. They're important to finance, they're important to supply chain, they're important somewhere, but not to that mobile user. And if we can kind of throw that stuff out and focus only on the stuff that mobile user needs, we can give them a better user experience, or we call it UX.
So in other words, it's kind of like the principle of KISS, right? Keep it simple.
Sure.
Don't overload them.
Don't just pack
everything.
it full of stuff.
Right. Like, look at every bright, shiny widget I can possibly put in here.
Right.
Oh, do you want to know what the temperature is in Tucson, Arizona and the Sahara Desert at the same time? Well, yeah, I'm sure that really helps when they're trying to figure out what the pressure is. Right,
Right, exactly. And, but if you need that, then we need to make that available to you. So we can't go in and just say, all you get is this one thing, because that's what most people need. If they need both data points for whatever reason that we can't anticipate, give them to them. But if they don't, take it out. And it's keep it simple, stupid. But even more than that, you mentioned fit for purpose. That's the term that's kind of understood for what we're talking about. But it really is getting it down to give them only what they need, but making sure they have what they need. We believe that the tool should support the process rather than asking you to change the way that you work because of what the tool is capable of.
But I think sometimes changing the way that you work is necessary, though, right?
It can be, but it shouldn't be driven by your mobile solution. It should be an organizational decision, something that you've planned, considered, organizational change management or OCM. It can absolutely be part of the rollout, and you say, we've got 50 ways of doing this thing. We want to standardize. This tool is going to help us standardize. But you shouldn't say, we used to do it this way. We have to do it this way now because that's all the tool will support.
Would you say that you could baby step that through
Sure.
the utilization? Have you seen an example like that where instead of we tried to do a mobile solution, we tried to use XYZ to do our work orders, right? And it was just a disaster, and because nobody used it because
Right.
whatever reason. Have you ever seen where you like, all right, let's stop, let's rebuild, let's baby step? Have you ever seen that before?
Oh, absolutely. And it takes a couple different forms. So initially what I think is when you mentioned that it didn't go well, I joke a lot of times that our biggest competitors in the mobile space are not the other products out there. It's a pen and paper and a clipboard. And if it's easier to do it the old-fashioned way, they will, because they don't want the headache of learning the new thing. They don't want the hassle of carrying the device. Whatever it is, it has to deliver benefit for them. We've got a customer in the Netherlands, actually, who had 4 or 5 disparate systems that they wanted to bring into one. And they did it by way of their mobile solution because they were able to deliver 4 different front-end experiences that all tied to the same back end. So each group got to keep sort of the way they were used to working, and then we could incrementally change it to be the unified thing over time. So it wasn't a big bang, hey, you do your job differently now. It was, we'll start with this, and then next month or next quarter or next year, we'll tweak it a little bit to bring it closer to alignment, closer to alignment, closer to alignment.
Standardization over time. That's awesome.
And that kind of breaks down some of that cultural resistance, right?
Absolutely. And it gives people a feeling that they've got a voice in the process. And each of those process owners or system owners in that case got to say, this is my place. I'll control how we move from it rather than you're telling me what to do with this. And that generally captures a little more cooperation.
So in the course of having those discussions and trying to make sure that you are nailing that fit for purpose, right? The KISS understanding, do you see some general themes of what people's, what I'm going to say are like preconceived notions of what mobile should be doing?
Yeah, it's interesting because over the past couple of years, there's been a lot of maturity gained in the market. And as a result, a lot of the products are a lot closer to each other than they used to be. So it's no longer a feature shootout the way it sometimes was, where you say, well, if we want to do this thing, we have to use this product. With that said, They all do it slightly differently and with a slightly different focus on what they're aiming for. So understanding, if offline use is critical to you, make sure you get a product that is really usable offline. If you're online 99% of the time, that's not as important. So choosing your product based on those discriminators, the things that are going to put you in a different category than another company that might want to put that in place, really goes a long way to getting the right fit in there and making sure that, if they're all 80% the same with 20% difference, focus on which 20% difference is most important to what you're trying to do with it.
So as we start to draw this episode to a close, Aaron, is there any last minute nuggets of wisdom you want to try to give to the audience?
Again, I think I sound like a broken record, but it really does come down to understand what you're trying to do, and then you'll be able to tell when you've got something that does that for you. But start with the requirements. Don't jump in. Don't start with a product and hope to find your way. Find where you're trying to go and choose a product that suits that.
Start with the end in mind. Mm-hmm. Know what your objective is, your goal is. Find the thing that helps you get there.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it.
And for everybody out there, we'll catch you next time in the next episode of Reliability Radio.